If I Only Knew by Wanderlove, Chapter 14. Obi-Wan doesn't know what exactly pulls him from sleep, but whatever causes it, the resulting process is sudden and unpleasant, wrenching him without warning from deep, dreamless slumber. It's especially galling because since the war began, Obi-Wan can count on one hand the number of times he's been afforded the opportunity for an uninterrupted night's sleep. But tonight was supposed to be different. This morning, after months of chasing Count Dooku hither and fro across the Outer Rim, they had safely delivered Count Dooku to justice. In the end, it had taken 2 masters and 2 knights to capture him, and even then, Obi-Wan, Master Teen, and Knight Secura had largely been useless, heavily injured, concussed, or otherwise knocked out of the fight in the first handful of minutes. Instead, it had been Anakin who had dueled Dooku into submission, alone and wielding his and Obi-Wan's lightsabers like a man possessed. Even the normally taciturn Master Teen had grudgingly admitted it was one of the finest duels he had ever witnessed, and Obi-Wan had never been prouder of his former padawan. But there had hardly been any time for celebrations, let alone rest. Master Teen continued on to chase down General Grievous, while Ayla took half the remaining fleet and peeled off, acting as a decoy for the Separatist rescue attempts. Anakin and Obi-Wan had barely slept in the week since then, too busy acting as guards for their prisoner and staying alert for the slightest hint of nefariousness. Ahsoka, Rex, and Cody had tried to help ease the burden, shouldering all of Obi-Wan and Anakin's normal duties so that they could focus on Dooku. But even with that, there was so much still to be done. In addition to the legion of clones guarding him at all times, either Obi-Wan or Anakin had to be awake and present outside of his cell at all times just in case it came down to another duel. They coordinated interrogation sessions to little effect. Count Dooku had been suspiciously tight-lipped the entire time, not even rising to Obi-Wan's usual needling, which of course had only heightened their unease. And of course, there was the logistical nightmare that was trying to hurry toward Coruscant without actually appearing like they were in a hurry. Nothing screamed, "Please attack me, we have a valuable prisoner aboard!" like making a beeline straight back to Coruscant. So instead, they had mapped out the most circuitous route possible, all while under a strict communications blackout. It had been hellish. Tonight was supposed to be different. High-strength force suppressors, a custom prison cell, dozens of Jedi and clone guards, the whole of the temple, and the entire open circle fleet now stands in between Dooku and escape. Tonight, Anakin and Obi-Wan had been officially relieved of their duties, and they had immediately collapsed into bed, too exhausted for it to be even remotely sexy. Tonight, they were finally supposed to be able to sleep the night through. He exhales heavily in frustration, thoughtlessly extending an arm to Anakin, only to meet cold sheets. Obi-Wan sits up abruptly, glancing around as a sudden sharp fear blooms in his breast. "I'm here," Anakin calls out, voice unexpectedly close. Obi-Wan turns and sees that beside him, Anakin is awake and tucked up against the headboard. He is tense, unmoving, knees bent close to his chin, and arms wrapped around his folded knees as he stares into the middle distance. "Nightmares?" Obi-Wan queries, yawning away the last vestiges of sleep. "Like the ones I had about my mother, right before the Hutts came for her," Anakin replies woodenly. He won't look at Obi-Wan. "And?" Obi-Wan prompts when nothing more is forthcoming. He lays a hand on Anakin's shoulder and rubs gentle circles. Anakin's gaze cuts over to him suddenly. "And you die." "Oh." Obi-Wan has no idea what to say to that. "You were joking, clawing at your throat and calling out my name. I couldn't see why or how." Anakin stares down at the sheets. "What about you? You said I'm calling your name, so presumably you're there as well? Do you survive?" "I don't know." Obi-Wan ponders this for a moment, his instinctive urge to soothe Anakin's fears and claim it was just a dream, warring with his experience regarding their accuracy. "Then we must take what precautions we can," he says finally. "Dooku is in custody. Ventress probably doesn't care enough to hurt me unless someone else is paying, but that still leaves Savage and Dooku's master, whomever he or she may be." "Precautions!" Anakin demands, voice tight. "I dreamed you died, and all you can speak of are precautions." "What else would you have me do?" Obi-Wan sighs. Anakin stays silent, and his gaze turns angry, eyebrows slanting viciously. But I will take the warning to heart and be more cautious. No more solo missions, no harrying off after random Darksiders, no handling strange Force artifacts. You swear? I swear it, please, Anakin. Just put this terrible dream out of your mind. Obi-Wan says, a touch of desperation in his voice as he clasps his hands around Anakin's and pulls it away from the death grip on his knees. Obi-Wan holds his breath, then slowly, carefully, Anakin nods. He exhales in relief and extends his awareness across the bond so that they are even more tightly intertwined than normal. He sends waves of soothing calm. Come, let me help you fall back asleep. I don't know why we're wasting Jedi on guard duty. Anakin whines. He fusses with his brand new clean robes as they stride through the Senate hallways. Both Padme and Obi-Wan level disappointed looks his way, their own demeanors implacable. This vote is important, Danny, Padme says, her voice severe. We must do whatever we can to ensure that senators feel safe to vote their conscience. Shouldn't they just be doing that already? He grumbles. That's their whole job. You don't seem to have any problem telling everyone exactly what you think. Yeah, well, yes, but not everyone is me. And it hasn't escaped anyone's notice that the death threats and assassination attempts against myself, Bail, Garm Bel Iblis, and Mon Mothma have increased twofold since the inception of the delegation. That sort of thing gives most people pause. More importantly, Obi-Wan continues, the Chancellor is currently designated as the Supreme Commander of a large, well-armed military force. It is important that the senators realize that this title doesn't mean the Jedi or the rest of the Gar will automatically side with him in any sort of retribution scheme. Some of them might be reluctant to vote to roll back the Chancellor's executive powers for fear of what it might mean for the security of their planets. I can't believe a bill to roll back just one of the Chancellor's emergency powers is so contentious. It's about designating special trade zones without Senate approval for Force sake. Anakin sighs. What are they going to do if they have to debate something actually important? Never underestimate the power of precedent, Padme replies with a shrug. Anybody who's been in the Senate long enough knows that what really we're fighting for is to make the next vote easier. We start small with special trade zones, then move up to his emergency powers regarding the judiciary, and after that, the military powers. Each vote will peel away more and more senators as they realize that this is the new status quo. And once we have enough support, then we'll finally introduce a motion to remove the indefinite hold on elections, and their whining will be a lot more manageable because it's not as big of a jump. Ugh, politics. Anakin groans. There. Padme teases, though it is half-hearted at best. Across the way, she has spotted her Senator Sana, one of the key yet undecided votes. I'll handle all the hard parts. All you need to do is stand there and look pretty. In my very itchy new robes, he points out. Anakin! Obi-Wan sends across the bond in warning. He gestures meaningfully to Padme's pale, stressed face. Obi-Wan opens his mouth again, then closes it again. But whatever you need, Padme, Anakin says, rather ungraciously. Obi-Wan raises an eyebrow, but figures it's the best he can hope for, at least for now. Go on, I can tell you want to corner the senator, Obi-Wan says encouragingly. Anakin and I can loiter over here, give you two what privacy we can. Can you? Senator Sana is quite taciturn. I don't want to give him any reason to climb up further. Perfectly understandable. Go ahead, my dear. We will find some way to entertain ourselves. Thank you, Master Kenobi, Padme says, already hustling away across the atrium. Why does she like you better? She's my friend, not yours. Anakin grumbles when she's gone. Obi-Wan finds himself raising his eyebrows yet again. You're in quite the mood today, he comments. Anakin shakes his head and gives him a tired but apologetic smile. I'm sorry, Master. I just haven't been sleeping well. Nightmares again? Obi-Wan asks, gaze and tone sharpening as one. It has been at least a fortnight since they returned to Coruscant, but he thought that Anakin's nightmares had lessened. At least, he'd stopped coming to Obi-Wan about them. Before Anakin can respond, they are interrupted by the unwelcome sound of Sheev Palpatine's voice.
Ah, Anakin, Master Kenobi, the man of the hour.
Chancellor Palpatine greets his puffy red velvet robes well matched to the surrounding ostentatious finery and a small coterie of supporters surrounding him.
Just who I was looking for. We are very glad to see you safely returned to Coruscant, especially after what you've just done for the Republic.
Thank you, sir, Obi-Wan demurs, but it was no more or less than our duty demands.
If you say so,
Palpatine says dismissively, clearly more interested in Anakin's response. When none is forthcoming, he prods again. I watched the security footage of your duel with Count Dooku. May I say, Anakin, it was quite excellently done. If the Council knows what they're about, you'll be promoted to Master before the year is out. Obi-Wan stiffens. Thanks, sir. Anakin looks more than a little flustered. But I doubt that. Master Jedi must train at least one apprentice to knighthood, and my Padawan has a little while yet to go.
Oh, nonsense,
Palpatine says with a wave of his hand.
Surely an exception can be made for the Jedi who brought Count Dooku to justice.
I don't think anyone will argue my skills with a saber, but I still have a lot to learn about the Force. Anakin replies with a self-depreciating smile. So humble. One of Palpatine's followers titters. Giggles break out as Anakin stares in horror. Luckily, he is saved from a response by a commotion brewing on the opposite end of the atrium, where a pale-faced Ahsoka is fighting her way determinedly through the crowds. She bumps into the senator from Rhodia and hastily apologizes, then glances up and spots Anakin and Obi-Wan. Her face assumes a grim cast, and she changes direction, heading straight for them at a fast clip. Once she pauses in front of them, Obi-Wan notices that she is panting slightly, clearly having run the whole way here.
Master Obi-Wan, Skywalker, you have to come right now,
she declares.
Count Dooku has been shot in the head by a clone!
Sirs, I swear I don't know what happened. The clone who shot Dooku, one of the 501st, a newcomer named Tup, who had been on his first guard duty rotation, looks wretched, his face drawn and head drooping low as he sits slumped in his chair. The assembled Jedi, Master Windu, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, and the clone commanders, Rex, Pons, and Cody, share a look over Tup's head. Obi-Wan clears his throat. Could you explain what happened? He asks gently. Again, I know you've explained what's happened over and over, but we're just trying to help you figure it out. I remember everything, but it's like... Tup trails off, struggling. It's like I was trapped in my own body. I knew I was doing those things, but I had no idea why. Anakin examines Tup's face carefully, then nods once, and turns back to Master Windu and Obi-Wan with a determined slant to his features. I stand by my men, he declares in a tone that brooks absolutely no argument. Ahsoka glances over to her master for reassurance, then nods in determined agreement. If Tup says he wasn't in control of his actions, then he wasn't in control. It sounds like a strong Force suggestion to me.
Yeah, maybe Dooku's master needed to silence him before Dooku could reveal their identity.
Ahsoka adds in support, crossing her arms over her chest and planting her feet in an imitation of Anakin's militant stance. That would require Dooku's master to have remained within a certain radius of Tup the entire time, or risk his control slipping. Master Windu replies with an exasperated shake of his head. He would have had to enter the heart of the temple. Sir, Rex says reluctantly to Anakin, I appreciate your faith, but the clones on patrol said there was no one else but Tup around. We would have seen the Sith Master if he had been here. It may sound unlikely, Anakin presses hotly, but it makes far more sense than the bantha shit idea that Tup just upped and betrayed his brothers and the Republic for no good reason. You can't just will your version of truth into existence absent of all evidence. Master Windu responds severely. Anakin's face turns dark while Rex and Pons watch them warily, looking as if they're contemplating physically jumping in between their generals. Tup? Obi-Wan asks quietly, derailing Anakin and Master Windu's brewing argument. Have you had your chip removed yet? Or deactivated? No sir. I only joined the 501st a month or so ago while we were chasing Dooku. I'm slotted for the next round. And who was on guard duty with you? Fives, Robbie, Jax, Dogma, and Deku, sir. All of whom have already had their chips deactivated.
You don't think...
Ahsoka's voice is faint, horrified. Obi-Wan nods gravely. I think we must at least investigate the possibility. Anakin makes a fair point, though Master Windu's own observation is equally as valid. So, we must start to look for alternative explanations, and this is one of the few things that distinguish Tup from the other clones that were present. Master Windu activates his wrist arm. Master J, he says grimly, we're on our way to the healing odds with the clone in tow. Be prepared for a full brain scan and examination. Of course, Master. May I ask what for?
I'll explain once we arrive.
Cody draws Tup to his feet with a hand on his arm, and Pons falls in line so that together they stand shoulder to shoulder with Tup, boxing him in. They make for the healing halls at a brisk pace, ignoring the whispers that follow them and the sight of a clone in binders. No one is much inclined to idle conversation, so it is a short but silent walk. Once they arrive, they're greeted by a visibly confused Master Che, all the other apprentices and healers watching curiously as they go about their business in the bright white space. Master Windu pulls Master Che aside for a brief whispered conversation. The blood rushes from her face, turning it the same translucent color as the crystals of Illume, and she steps forward, gently drawing Tup away. He looks around fearfully as he's forced to lay down on a nearby bed and wheeled off to an examination room. Rex looks torn, staying firmly at Anakin's side, but his whole being leaning towards his brother in distress. Obi-Wan gestures for Rex to follow.
Go, he'll need your support right now, he says. Besides, there's nothing more to discuss, at least not until we get Master Che's evaluation.
For several hours, they wait anxiously, Anakin pacing and throwing occasional worried looks towards the door as Master Windu and Obi-Wan meditate, and Ahsoka is torn between copying them or her master. Cody and Pons stand a little ways away, muttering grimly to each other. Finally, Master Che and Rex re-enter the room, and everyone present reorients to face them, as if they are small pieces of durasteel caught in the grip of a magnet. Master Che clears her throat, clearly shaken.
The chip is capable of sending out small electrical pulses that prevent ion uptake in the synapses, disrupting and redirecting interneuron communication, especially in those areas of the brain related to higher functions like decision-making, she says. From what we can tell, TOPS was activated relatively recently, likely triggered by some sort of audio-visual signal.
They're rushing him into surgery as soon as we can get an EM pulse to deactivate the chip.
Rex adds the words, cracking painfully.
I've already calmed the rest of Domino Squad. They'll be there for him when he wakes up.
How in the Sith hells did we miss this? Anakin demands. His and Ahsoka's eyes are blazing. We've removed hundreds of thousands of these things.
We always knew that chips could send out electrical pulses, but wrongly made the assumption that such pulses were high voltage, meant to destroy the brain tissue and act as the equivalent of a self-destruct button,
Master Che says, sounding pained.
For obvious reasons, we never wanted to accidentally activate the chips, so I made the call not to study them in situ. It was only after studying TUP's recently activated chip and surrounding brain architecture that we realized that the pulses are far finer and more targeted than we originally thought.
They can take away our decisions. Just like that.
Pon asked, sounding horrified. Master Che nods once jerkily.
What else could they make us do?
Without the master unit, I likely won't ever know the full extent of the orders, but their control is so absolute that they can make you shoot your brothers without blinking an eye.
And we have no idea who has access to that master unit, Rex says. But if one of the orders was to kill a prisoner in cold blood, I can't imagine that the others are any more pleasant. How many clone chips remain to be deactivated?
Master Windu asks grave.
Barris calmed me a few days ago. Something along the lines of 1 in 5.
Ahsoka replies.
She said we're on track to meet our goal of full deactivation in 6 more months.
That's too many.
Master Windu shakes his head.
We must reprioritize chip deactivation now. We can't afford to wait 6 more months for full deactivation. Have all available auxiliary personnel switch to building portable pulse generators and notify all Jedi generals that they have until the end of the month to get their battalions to full deactivation.
I can take a look at the generators. Anakin volunteers. I could probably increase the range, get more chips with one activation.
Do it.
Master Windu agrees.
And I can rendezvous with Barris in the Palathian system.
Ahsoka volunteers, squaring her shoulders.
Bring her the new pulse generator and help speed recovery for those clones who need to rotate back to the front.
We just got back to Coruscant, Snips, Anakin says with a frown. We're supposed to be helping with this vote.
I know, she responds quietly, which is why you have to stay, but I should go. My recovery times speak for themselves, and right now, we need every second. We can't afford not to send me out.
She's right, Anakin, Obi-Wan says gently. Anakin shoots him a betrayed look. Ahsoka shakes her head fondly.
I'll be fine, Master. You're the one staying in the Senate, and one of the first things you ever taught me was that the front is still a far less dangerous than those storied house.
You've got me there. Anakin admits with a sigh. Could you at least take R2 with you?
I thought the point was to stay out of trouble.
Hey now, Anakin says without heat. He lays a hand on Ahsoka's shoulder. I'm so proud of you. You know that, right?
She gives a cheeky smile and a jaunty little salute.
Very well then. Come on, Obi-Wan.
Master Windu says, sweeping away with flourishing swirl of his robes.
We must call an emergency council meeting.
The next month is one of the worst in Obi-Wan's experience. Even longer and more exhausting than some of the worst campaigns in this war. Between helping the delegation rally support for the upcoming vote, directing fleet deployments and resupply efforts, managing their frantic clone chip deactivation program, and worrying about Anakin's ever-worsening moods, he feels as if he is unraveling. But it's not just him. All the Jedi, from the youngest Padawans to the oldest Masters, are stretched to a breaking point trying to rally for one last push. Even Master Yoda has been called off planet to help bolster troops in the Rhodes sector. To make matters worse, the miasma of darkness that has hung over the Force for almost all of Obi-Wan's adult life has only grown exponentially worse since Count Dooku's assassination. For many years now, the Jedi have had to be careful not to accidentally brush up against the dark side when meditating or reaching out for the Force. It is especially a concern for their strongest, most Force-sensitive members, the most in tune with the Force and its ever-changing, ever-swirling currents, Anakin chief among them. But the darkness is now so pervasive that even knights of middling Force sensitivity are coming to the mind healers complaining of constant nausea and headaches. Obi-Wan can't imagine what Anakin's going through, but all his attempts to help seem to fall on deaf ears, Anakin rebuffing each and every one of his attempts to help.
If you won't let me help you meditate, could you at least go back to Healer Jakai?
Obi-Wan had demanded after one particularly explosive argument.
I know you haven't officially been his patient for many years, but I know that he still considers you a personal friend and he'd hate to see you like this. He's already swamped with so many other patients.
Anakin had replied with a shake of his head.
And yeah, the council would tell him to reshuffle the waiting list to move me to the front of the line, because I'm the Criffing chosen one. But I know he'd feel so awful about the whole thing and probably work himself to death still trying to squeeze everybody else in.
Obi-Wan hadn't known what to say to that. Anakin wasn't wrong. Poor Healer Jakai currently had over 300 active patients listed with the council. But despite his personal bias in this matter, Obi-Wan couldn't help but feel that Anakin's case was extreme enough to warrant a reprioritization of the waiting list. Anakin had left the room before he could formulate a proper response. And that had been the end of that. With their disparate duties, Obi-Wan plays better with a certain sort of senator interested in charming small talk about ancient poetry, while Anakin's connection to the Chancellor means that Senator Organa has decided he's better used to sway Palpatine loyalists on the fence. He's hardly ever gotten the chance to press the point any further. Anakin has taken to leaving the bed before Obi-Wan wakes and coming back long after he goes to sleep at night, which is saying something considering Obi-Wan now wakes at the crack of dawn and goes to bed deep into the night. He's growing increasingly worried and desperate, trying to formulate excuses to pull Anakin aside. He knows that if he could just get one uninterrupted conversation with Anakin alone, he can figure out what's troubling him so much and help. Which is why he's so pleasantly surprised to find Anakin sitting on their bed as he enters their shared quarters after a long afternoon of meetings in the Senate. His head snaps up and he stands to his feet as soon as Obi-Wan enters, clearly having been waiting for him. Obi-Wan spares a quick thought of gratitude. Anakin in the same room as Obi-Wan, ready to talk? This is more than he dared hope, and he won't waste the opportunity. Obi-Wan moves forward to embrace him, but the whipcord tension in Anakin's body doesn't unwind. He frowns, pulling back to scan Anakin's face, the dark circle standing out in stark contrast to his tanned skin, the slightly wild and sleepless gleam in his eyes.
Anakin, not that I'm not glad to see you,
Obi-Wan says tentatively,
but are you okay? You don't look well.
Anakin's grip on Obi-Wan's elbows turns tight and painful.
I've found a way to save you,
he declares completely out of the blue. Obi-Wan's brow furrows as he tries to parse exactly what Anakin is talking about. He looks at the thin, exhausted lines of Anakin's face and searches his memories for a potential cause.
Your nightmares?
He says, comprehension dawning as he finally makes the connection.
Is that what this has been about? I thought we agreed that I'd just be a little more careful for the next couple of months.
We did.
But they didn't go away, they got worse.
Anakin says, voice pained.
I can't even close my eyes without seeing you dying over and over and over again. But I figured out how to stop it. You're on some sort of dark platform, confronting a cloaked man. I think he's some sort of Sith. Maybe Dooku's master? I'm there, and you're begging me to help, but he's too powerful, But I can save you. I know I can. I just need to be better than him. I need to figure out why he's so strong, learn the same power, and then he won't stand a chance. Anakin,
Obi-Wan interrupts sharply.
That sounds like the dark side. So, if it saves you, who cares if it's light or dark? I care. If the price of my life is you falling, then I would rather you would let me die. How can you say that?
Anakin demands, recoiling.
Because I love you!
Both Anakin and Obi-Wan freeze, the words cracking whip sharp across the silence. Obi-Wan is briefly horrified. But what's done is done. He can't take it back even if he wanted to. He swallows heavily and squares his shoulders.
You love me,
Anakin says. He sounds confused. Obi-Wan doesn't dare try to reach him through the bond, too afraid of what he might find.
I'm sorry that you had to find out this way. I never meant to burden you.
Anakin looks shell-shocked, and Palpatine's words reverberate in Obi-Wan's head.
I never planned for this to happen. I never even thought of you that way while you were my padawan, I swear. Though I know my word probably doesn't mean much to you right now. It was only during the war. I know, I should have been content with your friendship, but I was selfish. But all I've ever wanted was for you to be all you could be, and I won't allow my failings to drag you down. Not when you're already a far greater Jedi than I could ever hope to be. You love me. Well, yes, I just said that.
Obi-Wan replies, frowning. He feels that Anakin's own imminent desire to sell his soul to the dark side should rank a little higher than Obi-Wan's ill-timed romantic declarations.
Anakin, I know this is a shock, but I don't expect anything more from you. I know the feelings are unreciprocated, potentially unwelcome. We can, of course, discuss it at some later date, but for now, can we please return to the matter? Ha!
Obi-Wan's words are cut off by a kiss, his head cradled in between Anakin's hands like he's something delicate, precious. Anakin breaks away suddenly, a giddy grin on his face.
You love me! Yes, why do you just keep repeating? I don't...
Obi-Wan drills off as hope begins to bloom, small and quiet, but Durasteel strong in his heart.
You're happy. Is that because you... Because I love you too, and I've been waiting so long for you to say just that.
Obi-Wan reaches out a tentative tendril across the bond, still half afraid that it will be rebuffed, but Anakin welcomes him in easily, confusion, joy echoing through his being. It's familiar, too familiar, and Obi-Wan withdraws quickly before his own bitter disappointment can taint Anakin's mind.
Your feelings, they haven't changed at all, Obi-Wan responds quietly. I know you love me, dear one, but I don't think we mean it in quite the same way. What the cark are you on about? Obi-Wan, I love you. I'm in love with you, and have been for years.
Yes, Obi-Wan says faintly. Anakin nods.
So, your mysterious crush is you, was you, has always been you.
Anakin laughs, half hysteria, half genuine amusement.
Since I was 16.
Oh! Obi-Wan pauses, thinks back to all of his jealous, resentful rages when he wondered how Anakin's crush could possibly be so persistent when they never spent any time with said crush. Anakin was almost always deployed for months at a time, Obi-Wan had reasoned, and they only ran into other Jedi in person for a couple of days every few weeks, so Anakin couldn't possibly be spending more than a handful of hours in this other man's presence every other month or so. He winces. Oh! Anakin laughs at the look on his face, far more sincerely this time, and swoops in for another kiss. Obi-Wan sits readily, mouth opening without a second thought, his heart lighter than it has been in months, years even. He knows they should continue their conversation, that the war still rages on outside their walls, but suddenly that seems so insignificant compared to the bright, bubbly feelings of using the Force all around them. Anakin reaches out eagerly across the Force, pulling Obi-Wan deeper and deeper into his mind. Obi-Wan's consciousness responds equally as eager, and he tumbles down across the radiant bond at the same time that Anakin sends them tumbling onto the bed in the physical world. There is a dizzying moment when Obi-Wan is simultaneously in bed in the present, the sheets a mess around him, and Anakin's smiling face above, and in the main living space of their quarters 5 years ago, watching his younger self launch into a lecture on the fascinating phenomena of the convergent evolution of various flora and fauna across sectors. Then he is pulled fully into Anakin's memories. Anakin has no clue what's going on, but is perfectly content to listen and watch the light in Obi-Wan's eyes and, "Are you sure you want to listen? I don't want to bore you with lectures in your free time." And, "No, this is really interesting, Master, but I had a question." And, "That's a great question. I'm so glad to finally have a willing audience, Padawan. If you're interested, I could recommend some flimsies." And the constant bombarding noise in Anakin's memories from someone else's perspective are weird. Head is finally quieted by having Obi-Wan's attention just fully, passionately focused on him, and the happiness Obi-Wan oozes into the Force, and it should just be like this forever, and always this what love feels like, and a skip and a jump, and then they're on a mission on some sort of jungle planet. Obi-Wan stripping down to the thinnest of sleep bands in the humid heat and lying awake in the other bed the whole night, watching the sweat beat up and roll across every muscle, and slipping a hand beneath his pants, and frantically touching himself, and, "Quiet, you can't wake him up, and wake him, this is all his fault. You should take care of it for me. He always takes such good care of me." And Obi-Wan flirting with Quinlan, with Ventress, with Senator Organa, with a princess of some random strategically planet in the middle of nowhere, with absolutely everything that breathes except Anakin, and what am I doing wrong? And they don't deserve him, and it burns, and standing in a hallway of the coronet and listening to Satine and,
"I'd rather share some of you with the Order, with the Republic, with the whole galaxy than take the risk. I'd get none of you at all."
and she's right! And Obi-Wan is attached to him at least a little bit, and he told Anakin so, but not enough to change anything. Not the same way Anakin is, because Obi-Wan is a good Jedi, and Obi-Wan is kissing his shoulder, and he has to bite his lip, barely containing his declarations of love, because he promised Obi-Wan no attachments, and if Obi-Wan knew, he'd be so disappointed, he'd make them stop, and Anakin can't go back, not now, then he knows what Obi-Wan tastes like, and I'll take whatever I can get, and the shock of Obi-Wan's words just a few minutes ago, the unexplainable joy, and even now, can Obi-Wan really be saying everything Anakin's ever wanted to hear, and it's too good to be true, but Anakin's dreams never usually feel this real. Obi-Wan pulls away from Anakin with a gasp, and he lays on the bed, panting and overwhelmed. They have ended up on their sides, facing each other and tightly intertwined. Obi-Wan reaches a hand up and traces Anakin's cheekbone, wondering. Anakin's eyes flutter open gently at the touch. "Oh, dear one," Obi-Wan says. He presses his lips once more to Anakin's, gentle but no less strong for it. "This is real. You're here. I'm here with you, I swear." For a moment, they breathe in and out together until both of their racing heartbeats have calmed. "Do you understand now why I can't let you die?" Anakin finally says, voice quiet, small. "No, absolutely not," Obi-Wan replies, voice firm as his thumbs dig into Anakin's jawline. "You've seen how the dark side eats away at the inside of a person, brings out all their worst traits, and suppresses all rationality. If you fell, you wouldn't be the man I fell in love with, Anakin, and I wouldn't survive that. No matter what strange new powers you learned, watching you lose yourself, and knowing I was the cause, my heart would break, and I don't think I'd recover. You have to promise me that you'll stop this foolish quest for power. It can only end in pain and suffering for us both. No, Anakin, you must promise me. Please. I promise," Anakin says, hanging his head. His voice is jagged. "I just hate this stupid war. It just takes and takes,
It makes everything so muddy, and the Force is always so loud. I can't do this much longer. Sometimes I wish I could just run away, but I can't. Why not? What? Anakin's voice is confused, and Obi-Wan sits up, pulling Anakin with him. They sit cross-legged on the bed, hands tangled together as they face each other. Let's run away, Obi-Wan says. Together. But what about the Order? We'll resign from the Order, from the Guard, as soon as the Separatists sign a ceasefire. It won't be long now, with Dooku dead and Grievous on the run. The rest of the Separatist Council are terrible cowards. You'd leave the Order for me. Of course, dear one. Obi-Wan responds gently. He laughs kindly. The only reason I stayed, once I realized how badly my attachment to you was clouding my judgment, was because I feared that I'd never see you again if I left. I know being a Jedi is all you've ever wanted, and you might not want to leave. I didn't mean to assume. I've always wanted to help people. Anakin interrupts with a shake of his head. And I used to think being a Jedi was the only way to do that. It'll be hard to let go, adjust. And I'll have to talk to Ahsoka, make sure she can find a good master to finish her training. But as long as you're there, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Anakin laughs giddily. Hope stretches bright and thin across the bond. What would we even do? Anything we want, I guess. Where do you want to start? I'd like to help the clones settle into civilian life. Anakin volunteers. Maybe jobs, training, and counseling. Help them come to terms with the chips and what was done to them. How about you? Well, I've always dreamed of offering some sort of training to those children the Order is either unwilling or unable to train. Obi-Wan says hesitantly. At Anakin's encouraging look, he continues in a stronger voice. Those that are born outside Republic space that we find too late. It's not fair that it's all or nothing. Even if they can't be knights, we should at least be able to teach them shielding, meditation, and control. The reasoning has always been that non-temple trained Force-sensitive tend to fall at almost 3 times the rate of Jedi, but I have to wonder if that's just because they're never offered a third option. They're stuck with this immense scary power, and no idea what's going on. No wonder they're so fearful and prone to the dark side. You are a great teacher, especially for young, angry Force-sensitive too old to be trained. Anakin says a right twist to his mouth and eyes soft. I like that idea a lot. And I think the clones would love helping out with a bunch of kids. So, we're starting a school of some sort. Where? New Sun, I should think. Obi-Wan replies dryly. Anakin makes a face and nods quickly. So as much as I adore your mother, I think Tatooine is out. It should still be warm, though. Anakin muses. Somewhere green, leafy, with lots of animals and plants for you to study in your free time. I'm sure we can find some place. And should we ask around? I know we're not the only Jedi who are questioning their place in the Order because of the war. We can't make their decisions for them, of course, but I imagined it'd be just a little easier if they knew that they had some place that would welcome them with open arms if they did decide to leave the Order. Isla and Bly will definitely want in on the action. Anakin declares. His eyes are bright, dancing, and he swoops in for yet another kiss. So, we're doing this. We're doing this, Obi-Wan confirms. We'll let the council know at the end of tomorrow's session. Oh, don't you give me those eyes. If we're doing this, I am not facing them alone. You can wait outside. I'll let you know when we're ready, and then we're facing them. Together. Together. Anakin confirms, the Force shining as brightly as supernova all around them. They both collapse back against the pillows, exhausted by all the plans and revelations. Obi-Wan's stomach grumbles loudly, and he groans. I don't think I want to get out of bed to address that, he groans. Then you shouldn't have to, Anakin declares and extends a hand. Obi-Wan watches him, confused for a moment. Comprehension dawns, and he spots a small round fruit floating into their room, spinning lazily in the air. The Force shouldn't be used so frivolously. Obi-Wan scolds automatically. Yes, because frivolous use of the Force is going to be the breach of the code that really gets the Council upset. Not the fact that I'm deeply, truly in love with another Jedi, who, by the way, I've been cribbing behind their backs for the past year and a half. Oh my god! Obi-Wan is cut off by the fruit, which Anakin has now guided into his open mouth. He reaches a hand up and plucks it out of his mouth. It's a pear, Obi-Wan's favorite. He gives Anakin an incredulous look. Why are you using the Force to float a pear into my mouth? It's like breakfast in bed. It's romantic.
A pause. You're really lucky I already love you, Obi-Wan says. There is one last matter before we disband, Obi-Wan says, voice calm and heart fluttering in his throat. The late afternoon golden orange light filters in through the wide windows of the council chamber, painting long shadows across the marble floor. The councillors look expectantly towards him, their faces ranging serene, tinged with a hint of curiosity. He inhales deeply and reaches out across the bond. I'm ready for us now, dear one.
Of course, Master Kenobi. Why are you standing?
Master Windu asks with a frown as Obi-Wan leaves his seat and moves to the center of the council room.
In this matter, I come before you not as a counselor, but as a knight,
Obi-Wan says, folding his hands into his robes. The doors to the chamber creak open, and Anakin strides in, exuding nervous but excited energy. Master Windu's frown deepens as Anakin comes to stand shoulder to shoulder with Obi-Wan, brushing resolve and love across the bond to bolster Obi-Wan. He smiles at the sweet gesture and extends his own reassurance.
Let's give Master Windu one last heart attack before we leave, why don't we?
Oh yes, let's. Two of my favorite things, pissing off Mace Windu and watching you go up full-on negotiator. A flash of wet heat and not in the council chambers, Obi-Wan hisses. Outwardly, he fixes a pleasant, apologetic smile on his face.
Thank you for agreeing to hear our petition,
Obi-Wan begins.
Give us much warning or twice. You did not.
Master Yoda rejoins dryly. His hollow flickers a thin buzzing sound, interrupting the connection. Obi-Wan acknowledges the rebuke with a tilt of his head.
Indeed, I apologize for the sudden nature, but we felt that it could not wait.
He pauses, inhales deeply.
Anakin and I would like to officially announce our resignation from the Jedi Order.
There is absolute silence.
The chaos!
What is the meaning of this? If you have some disagreement with the Council, with the Order, surely there are better ways to handle it.
In the middle of a war! Madness! Why is it always used to? Always!
Obi-Wan, for force's sake, I know your lineage is prone to drama, but...
Many light years away, Master Yoda wraps his gimmer stick against the ground and levels a severe look at the rest of the council. It's as effective as if he were still there in person. There is something about Master Yoda's disapproval that somehow manages to span across all barriers of space and time.
Hear them out. We will, he declares. Explain yourselves. You will. If disagreement have you, debate its merits. We will.
Obi-Wan waits for silence before he continues.
Thank you for saying that, Master, but you misunderstand me. We will be resigning, no matter the outcome of this meeting. That part is quite unavoidable, I fear. We merely wanted to give you the courtesy of heads up before the press got a hold of the information and determine a transition plan for our responsibilities. We have agreed that we are willing to stay at least until Grievous is captured or killed, possibly a little longer depending on how our efforts to free the clones go, but we cannot stay.
Why? Master T asks, her voice kind but confused.
Master Kenobi, you have always been a great proponent of reform, but I don't think that any of us had any idea that you were this dissatisfied.
It has nothing to do with dissatisfaction,
Obi-Wan says gently. He squares his shoulders and intertwines his fingers with Anakin's mechanical gold-plated ones. He can feel the weight of the counselors' incredulous stares on that tiny point of contact.
But we can no longer fight our attachment. We don't want to.
Well, there was a little bit more to the story, but no need to bore the council with details.
Attachment.
Master Windu's voice is faint. Obi-Wan raises his chin stubbornly, and Master Windu shakes his head disapprovingly.
Obi-Wan, he's your padawan.
Former padawan, Anakin retorts, squeezing Obi-Wan's hand. And the feelings are mutual. As I'm sure everyone here is well aware, no one, not even Obi-Wan, can force me to do something I didn't want to do in the first place. Besides, I was an adult and a knight when the relationship began, so the council can have no complaint on that front. Berate us all you want for attachment, for keeping the relationship from you as long as we have, but don't you dare attack Obi-Wan for that.
Little fair attachment does. Darkness lies on that path,
Master Yoda responds reproachfully. While we respect the code and your adherence to it, Masters, I have to disagree. Anakin says, uncharacteristically eloquent for once. Too many times during this war, I have felt myself being pulled into the dark,
by the death and hopelessness surrounding me, and each time it was Obi-Wan's love, his attachment, that pulled me back. You of all people should not be lecturing us on attachment, Master Mundi says coolly. If not us, then who? Obi-Wan asks, jumping back in. Masters, before we leave, I ask that you simply consider for a moment what your literal, dogmatic interpretation of the code is doing to the Order. I know from sitting on this council that we are hardly the first Jedi who have begun to question the code during this dark time.
Why does this sound like a pitch for one of your crazy ideas, Kenobi?
Master Dean's aloe rumbles. You know me too well, Obi-Wan responds with a thin smile.
Though we can no longer be Jedi in the traditional sense, we still hope to maintain our ties with the Order. You are our family, our brothers and sisters. There is precedent. Members of the Corps are not expected to follow the code, after all. We want to provide a space for those the Jedi Order is ill-equipped to help. Former knights disillusioned by the war, Darksiders who Dooku manipulated, but who are trying to find a better path now that he's out of the picture. Children too old to be temple-trained.
Anakin continues, voice infused with a very un-Jedi-like passion.
The Force can help them. We can help them. If only we're willing to bend the code a bit.
Fascinating, Master Plo Koon says, folding his fingers in a meditative pose in front of his face. He leans forward.
A school of sorts? Yes, exactly. We hope to turn no one away.
Obi-Wan declares, relieved that Master Koon is finally speaking up. He'd been sure that they could count on his support, and had been growing increasingly nervous with every passing moment of silence.
Our only requirement would be that they are willing to learn.
Master Plo Koon pauses, thinks for a moment.
Could there be a space at the school for those families who want their children trained but did not want to give them to the temple creche? Many of the parents I have talked with have often expressed the desire for a third option.
Of course. We did not think of that, but I see no reason why we can't make space. I'm sure the parents who are more familiar with life outside of the temple would be valuable resources for helping the clones adjust to post-war life.
The clones?
Master Plo Koon asks, a bright, odd sort of interest in his voice. Obi-Wan can't quite tell what he's driving at.
Of course. We know that many of the clones are struggling to determine what they will do with the advent of peace, but we thought that offering them counseling, housing, and some form of employment at the school might give them the space they need to figure it out.
The council pauses, each member deep in thought, their faces varying from troubled to considering. Obi-Wan does his best not to fidget.
I think it is an excellent initiative, one that is long overdue,
Master Plo Koon declares finally. Obi-Wan's shoulders relax fractionally.
Which is why I too will be resigning from the Order to join this new school.
Thank you for...
Wait, what? Obi-Wan asks, flabbergasted. Master Plo Koon steeples his fingers and leans back in his seat, a hint of amusement tinging the force around him as the council erupts once more.
Silence! Master Windu roars. There will be orderly debate, not this panicked shouting. We are Jedi, not barbarians. Well, technically 3 of us aren't Jedi anymore.
Anakin points out, completely unhelpfully.
The council has not accepted your resignations yet.
Master Windu shoots back.
Until then, as far as we are concerned, you are still a knight of the Order, Master Koon. If you could please explain yourself.
Of course,
Master Koon replies easily.
But I should think the benefits are self-evident. The Jedi Order has always been strictly insular, only reaching out to help when asked by the Senate. There are so many more people we should be helping. And our isolation from the rest of the galaxy only hurts us most of all. No one understands the Force or our Order, and that makes it easy to blame and demonize us. We are called child snatchers, despite the fact that we never take the younglings without their parents' permission. We are called all-powerful and all-knowing, despite the fact that we are all still mortal. Some citizens consider us just another arm of the government, despite the fact that we're really a religious order. The opportunity to disseminate our ideals and beliefs to a willing wider audience is much needed. But more than that, this war has changed the Order, changed us, and we must acknowledge that. During the war, we allowed strict enforcement of the code to lapse, because we all agreed it would be inhumane to demand ideological purity in such a time of crisis. But doesn't such a policy inherently acknowledge that the code is unsustainable, that we must change and adapt, to better address the emotional and mental health of our people, I believe Master Kenobi's proposal strikes a fine balance between preserving tradition, allowing those Jedi who wish to follow the code to do so, and compassion, allowing those members who find that they can no longer do so to still remain a vital and important part of our order.
And you count yourself amongst those Jedi? Master Galia asks, frowning. Master Kuhn inclines his head.
I have become irrevocably attached to the Wolf Pack. In a way, I consider them the sons I will never have,
Master Plo Koon admits.
Long before Master Kenobi's proposal, I wrestled with how to handle the matter, dreaming up ever more fantastic plans to keep my men close to the Order and myself. This solution is far more elegant than any of my own ideas, and one I'm excited to be a part of. That is, if you two will have me.
Of course, Master Plo Koon.
Obi-Wan responds, touched. There is another long silence.
Much to think about. You have given us.
Master Yoda says, finally. Obi-Wan dares to hope. Anything more than a flat-out no is better than what he expected.
Accept your resignations at this time. We cannot.
What? Calm down, Skywalker.
Master Windu interrupts with a shake of his head.
We don't mean never. The Jedi Order is not in the habit in keeping people against their will. We just mean not now. In case you forgot, there's a very important vote happening soon. One which all three of you have played an integral role in. Once we receive the results of the vote, whatever they may be, and deal with the fallout, then we will acknowledge your resignations and revisit the matter of your proposal. Until then, we must table the matter.
Our first priority, this vote must be.
That is more than reasonable.
Obi-Wan agrees. He sends a soothing tendril across the bond. They're taking it far better than I had hoped. We may yet secure the support. Let us not quibble over this. It will be mere days, weeks at worst. I've waited far longer than that for you.
If we're talking about waiting, I think I win that particular battle.
Anakin comments wryly, but okay. Outwardly, he nods to signal his agreement to the council, and Master Plo Koon murmurs a similar acknowledgement.
Anakin and I will go to observe the floor debates tomorrow morning and keep the council apprised as originally planned.
Obi-Wan offers. The councillors nod in agreement.
Force willing, we will have good news to report. May the Force be with you,
Master Windu says, a strange sort of finality to the usual farewell.
And with you. Well, that was a shit show,
Anakin announces as they make their way out of the Senate pod normally reserved for the Jedi Order. He pauses to stretch his arms over his head and crack his neck side to side.
Indeed,
Obi-Wan murmurs, exhausted. It is late into the night, the debates having ranged on far longer than originally planned.
Senator Amidala's speech was especially stirring and seemed well received at the very least, but it will certainly be close no matter what.
Indeed.
An unwelcome voice interjects from behind them. They both turn as one to find the Chancellor waiting a few feet away, his bony hands clasped together. A look of sad disappointment is fixed upon his face, but it only makes the hair on the back of Obi-Wan's neck rise. The Chancellor sighs and stares into the distance.
And I seriously fear that the Senate will give into this fear-mongering and make the decisive action this war calls for that much more difficult.
Chancellor,
Obi-Wan greets sourly. The Senate is a large building, and the Chancellor is surely a busy man. It should be easier to avoid him.
But with Count Dooku dead and Grievous on the run, the war will be ending soon enough.
We can only hope, the Chancellor intones solemnly. But I'm an old man, jaded by experience. I can't help but fret, especially as we wait for the official vote tally.
Well, the results of the vote should be announced later tonight, Obi-Wan comments. You won't have long to wait.
And yet it seems like an age. Will you stay with me, my boy?
He asks, turning to Anakin, who shuffles his feet.
Offer an old man some distraction from these dark thoughts while we wait for the results.
Obi-Wan purses his lips in disapproval. No need to get your hackles up. It's just this one last time, Anakin says across the bond, sounding both fun and amused. We will be far away from Coruscant soon enough. Of course, Your Excellency, Anakin says with a shallow bow at the waist.
I must deliver an update to the council,
Obi-Wan says out loud with his own far stiffer bow.
I'll leave you to it.
Slowly, reluctantly, Obi-Wan allows Anakin and Palpatine to walk away, the Force screeching uncomfortably in his ears.
But he can't say anything. Not now. Not when Anakin is so determined to handle this himself and would not welcome Obi-Wan's interference. The rest of the journey back to the temple is equally as loud and uncomfortable, something dark clouding the Force and choking Obi-Wan's senses. At first, he thinks it's just him and willingly leaving Anakin alone with his former abuser, but as he arrives in the council chambers and can see the same uneasiness in all of the counselors' faces, he realizes it must be something far greater to reverberate across the Force like this. He shakes off all his remaining misgivings about Anakin. For it to be affecting the entire council this strongly, it must be about something far greater, the vote perhaps, or maybe Master Teen's continuing hunt for General Grievous. It must either be going very poorly or very well for him to be missing such a critical call. Obi-Wan delivers his report in an even voice, the counselors pressing him on one or two matters, but for the most part they sit in silence, the only sound the occasional flicker of a hollow, as they all lose themselves in their own thoughts. When Obi-Wan's comm beeps with an incoming call from Senator Organa, his breath catches in his throat as he shakily accepts and transfers the call to the council chamber comm system. Senator Bail Organa's small blue figure flickers to life in the center of the circle of chairs. Obi-Wan feels as if the entire room is holding its breath as they wait for Senator Organa to collect himself. Senator Organa inhales deeply and opens his mouth.
By a narrow but significant margin, the Senate has voted to pass SB 12098.
The whole council breathes a sigh of relief.
Congratulations, Senator Organa. We know this was no easy accomplishment,
Obi-Wan says finally. Senator Organa's face breaks out into a true smile, the likes of which Obi-Wan has not witnessed on his face in a very long time, not since the start of the war at least.
Thank you, my friend, but it was a joint effort.
Senator Organa demurs.
We could not have done this without the support of so many, this council included. If congratulations are to be made, I should be congratulating you all as well. Yes, this is all very nice,
Master Windu says brusquely.
What are the next steps? When will we have confirmation that the Chancellor's office has received the motion? Very soon,
Senator Organa promises.
I'm on my way to Chancellor's office now to deliver the final bill for his signature.
The council shares a look.
Allow at least one or two of us to go with you,
Master Gallia declares.
You can't seriously be worried that he'd refuse to relinquish his emergency powers.
Bill's words are incredulous, but his tone tells Obi-Wan that he's not as disbelieving, as confident in the Chancellor's intentions as he would like to pretend. More than anything else, he sounds relieved they offered so that he didn't have to ask.
This council has long believed that it is important for the Jedi Order to be present and visible at important political events,
Master Windu says, which is no answer at all.
And this is certainly an important moment. Very well, the delegation shall await your escort at the Alderanian offices,
Senator Organa declares. Master Windu nods.
We will help you as much as we can. We understand how anxious you must be. After years of working with you, Master, I have come to realize that you must be feeling anxious. Is Jedi code for I too am feeling anxious but won't admit it,
Senator Organa says, one corner of his lips twitching, despite the grim situation.
So please do not pretend as if you were not equally as troubled. Now, Senator Organa, you simply can't go around spreading Jedi secrets like that.
Master Windu responds completely deadpan.
Ah, yes, how terribly rude of me. I look forward to seeing you in person,
Senator Organa says, his hollow winking out of existence. The council is immediately a chaotic bustle of activity as they debate the finer points of which of the masters currently still on Coruscant to send with Senator Organa. No one really knows what will happen, but they certainly didn't want to inflame the situation by sending a delegation that might be considered hostile. Obi-Wan's own intense and rather public dislike of the Chancellor, as well as his and Anakin's announcement yesterday, immediately disqualifies him. They must offer the Chancellor every opportunity to do the right thing. Anything less could tip the delicate scale of public opinion in his favor. It's eventually decided that Masters Windu and Fisto will be the ones to accompany Senator Organa. Obi-Wan follows them out of the chambers, anxiously reminding them that Anakin will be with the Chancellor and has absolutely no head for these sorts of politics.
Kenobi,
Master Fisto finally says, half exasperated, half amused.
I'll handle Skywalker. I'm sure if I just tell him how very impatiently you're awaiting his return, he will be out of the room in a split second.
He gives a lascivious wiggle of his brow bones. Obi-Wan turns crimson. Master Windu looks faintly ill, and Master Fisto breaks out into peals of laughter. Clapping a hand to Obi-Wan's shoulder, he and Master Windu continue on their way to the hangar, leaving Obi-Wan still blushing and standing in the middle of the hall. Obi-Wan pauses for a moment, watching them turn the corner before he sighs and begins to make his way back to his quarters, where he can pace and worry in peace.
Master Kenobi!
A high-pitched familiar voice breaks him out of his thoughts. He looks up, startled. The voice is familiar, but what is she doing in the temple? But yes, there is Senator Amidala's figure, hurrying towards him across the wide marble hallway. Her rich purple robes are made all the more distinctive by the stark contrast between their color and the sea of white and brown linen that normally defined the temple. A harried-looking senior padawan is following closely behind, a bewildered look on his face and his shorn red hair practically bristling with outrage.
Master, I'm so sorry. I tried to stop her, I swear.
The padawan bends before Obi-Wan can say anything.
I told her only Jedi are allowed in the temple without an escort, but she wouldn't take no for an answer.
It's quite fine, Padawan,
Obi-Wan says with a wave of his hand.
Greater beings than you have tried and failed to stop Senator Amidala when she has a mind made up. Return to your post.
The padawan shoots one last look to Senator Amidala, but then bows and backs away quickly.
I've been trying to get a hold of you for ages!
Senator Amidala exclaims impatiently, her voice brimming with urgency. Obi-Wan glances at his comm silenced earlier when they were debating who to send, a little shocked to see 47 missed calls.
I apologize. We just received word from Senator Organa on the vote. We've assembled a group of councillors to go with him to personally deliver the news to the Chancellor. We must ensure that he relinquishes the enemy powers specified in the bill peacefully.
He won't,
Amidala says grimly.
That's what I was trying to calm you about. He's been playing both sides. I finally broke the encryption on the last account and saw everything. He's been funneling funds and information back and forth from all the separatist leaders, mostly to Count Dooku, but also the Federation, the Genosians, Wat Tambor, all of them. He's been doing it for years, orchestrating the whole thing
like a puppet master in the Senate.
Obi-Wan finishes, lips and tongue heavy, numb in his mouth, as Count Dooku's warning all those years ago rings hollowly in his ears.
Exactly. He's never going to give up those powers willingly. He probably planned the whole war just to get them.
He's Sidious,
Obi-Wan murmurs, dazed.
What?
He's Darth Sidious, the Sith Master we've been looking for, the man who trained Dooku.
Oh!
Senator Amidala breathes, eyes wide and horrified.
That makes so much sense. He's been purchasing hundreds of rare Force artifacts. I just assumed it was money laundering, but if he's Force sensitive...
They both pause for a moment, struggling to absorb the full weight of this discovery. Chancellor Sheev Palpatine is a Dark Lord of the Sith. The Dark Lord of the Sith, a puppet master behind this whole terrible conflict. And Obi-Wan has just left him alone with Anakin! He gasps out loud, turning on his heel and sprinting straight towards the temple hangar.